Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Today we're going to focus on one specific small topic, so it's going to be a relatively short video, and we're going to talk about the removal and replacement of the head of the Ukrainian security forces, Vasyl Maluk, a very known name that has proven himself both in the operations Spiderweb, but also in strikes against Crimean Bridge and in innovations in drone technology. A lot of you have reached out to me and asked, why did Zelenskyy replace this guy? And I've heard many wild theories being speculated all across, including that it was some kind of a secret plan of Zelenskyy. But I do feel that everything here is on the surface, so let's look at this. So firstly, we need to understand why Zelenskyy is replacing people. And most of it is that he needs a cycling of the cabinet. He already outlined that he wants to see new faces. He wants to look essentially at how people were performing and promote people that were performing well, and then see kind of the full rotation of the cabinet. So the situation that happened with Yermak and other people in power that was there for long will not happen again. And despite the fact that Vasyl Maluk was really good in his job, Zelenskyy also saw this as an important action to do. Now, there is certain criticism for the fact that Zelenskyy is removing Vasyl Maluk, mostly because he has proven himself to be a very competent and strong commander of the Ukrainian security force operations. However, I feel that there is just a little bit more nuance to the thing than it seems. So firstly, let's look at the statements of President Zelenskyy and what he wanted to achieve. He said, I had a meeting with Vasyl Maluk. I thank him for his combat service and proposed that he focuses on this line work specifically. Here they discussed the work that Vasyl Maluk did in these counter operations against Russia, striking bridges, Operation Spiderweb, etc. There must be more Ukrainian asymmetric operations against the occupiers and the Russian state, and more solid results in eliminating the enemy. So Zelenskyy underscores that the operations that Vasyl Maluk has made were actually really good, and there should be more of it. This is where Vasyl is the strongest, and this is exactly where he will continue to do within the security services of Ukraine. So he will basically focus and be a person that is not responsible for the whole organization, because Ukrainian security services is a pretty big organization. They do a lot of things. They do like security checks for the organization if someone is working with the government. They're doing the oversight of the counterintelligence initiatives. They're doing a lot of the general protection for important people in the country. So there is a lot of the things the security services of Ukraine are doing that are not directly related to these counter operations against Russia. So my perspective here is that Zelenskyy sees that Maluk is specifically important for Ukraine to execute more of these operations rather than get distracted by a lot of the other points on the table. Now, there is an argument to be made whether this is right or wrong. I'm pretty sure a lot of people from perspective, but I think this is an executive decision that Zelenskyy made, and I do feel that this strongly correlates with his changes that he did in the other parts. And that's why it's important also to tackle some kind of wild narratives like this, where Ukrainska Pravda, a very weird newspaper, they have gotten themselves in a lot of scandals, extremely anti-Zelenskyy, by the way. They really, whenever it's possible to play him down, they play him down. When there was, for example, secret meeting that no media should have been disclosing the contents of that meeting, they actually went out and published the whole quotes of that meeting, which was a big no-no on journalistic front. So a very controversial newspaper that is very much anti-Zelenskyy, and they are stating that the source which both sources close to Maluk report that the chef's dismissal was an act of revenge orchestrated by Andriy Yermak, the president's former chief of staff. And this is pretty wild, and this is where kind of like this could be an interesting conspiracy theories, but it just doesn't align with other actions of Zelensky. Because in reality, Andriy Yermak, he didn't really like Budanov a lot. It's been quite well known that there was some bad blood between Budanov and Yermak. And Yermak actually tried to essentially dismiss Budanov multiple times while he was in charge. Yet, as Yermak has now been removed from the power, now suddenly he is making sure that Maluk is dismissed while Budanov is being promoted to his place. So again, it's a nice conspiracy theory, something you can definitely discuss around the beer and like crazy stuff. But the point of the matter is the data just doesn't align. So until proven otherwise, I do feel that Zelensky sees the value in Maluk, in specifically these operations like Spiderweb and strikes against Crimean Bridge and so on. Whether it's a good decision or not, I don't know. I don't have all of the data, and a lot of people, again, are arguing that the replacement of Maluk will be a bad guy, which I don't really feel, because the replacement of Maluk is Yevgen Kmara, who is going to be right now an interim head of SSO, but it is also expected that he will be taking over. Now, Yevgen Kmara, he is quite also known. He has been appearing in some interviews talking about the fact that they need to be doing more of those operations that, for example, Madyar and Mikhailo Fedorov has been promoting, that there needs to be just more Russian personnel killed in Ukraine, so the ratio of refillment of the Russian forces goes under the ratio of removal of Russians from this life. And therefore, I think this is pretty good candidate. Moreover, he was also the person that actually implemented a lot of the plans that were put forward by and participated in designing a lot of these plans. He participated in designing in plans on strike on Crimean Bridge. He participated in designing and execution of the Operation Spiderweb. So if you think that Operation Spiderweb was executed really good, not just planned very good, this is the person that was in charge. So I look at this guy, I look at the track record, and to be honest, nothing triggers red flags for me. So while there are some speculation and conspiracy theorists and people that just want to kind of play down that Zelensky is just dumb and he just wants to sabotage Ukraine, I once again want to underscore that data just does not align. If Zelensky really supposedly tries to sabotage Ukrainian victory, as some people would leave you to believe, then it doesn't explain why he promotes people like Budanov, like Fedorov, and like this guy to be in charge. This is especially true with what President Zelensky has been saying lately, that they are preparing Ukraine to be strong and resilient to fight the Russians long term. In his rhetoric, President Zelensky has been very clearly stating that we're going to fight Russians and fight at them again, unless this diplomatic track will not succeed. Spoilers, it will not. Putin is not looking for diplomacy, and Zelensky is building pretty much a very solid dream team, so to say, to actually tackle this threat and conduct operations on territory of Russia. So I want to address this because, as I said, it's a very important topic, and I do believe that President Zelensky has been reviewing a lot of his pre-existing position, especially after the issues with Yermak and surrounding people around him that supposedly was his best friends, Yermak. And to let you go on a positive note, we have this fantastic story over here where Russian propaganda channel was reporting that the Ukrainian armed forces carried out an airstrike on their own military and mercenaries who were hiding in a central hospital in Kupiansk. According to our data, yada, 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 Ukrainians being and everything so on, basically trying to portray and drive a narrative that Ukrainians just destroyed the building where the Ukrainian soldiers were at, and trying to make fun of the Ukrainian armed forces. The issue being with this, that other Russian propagandists saw this report and are like, hey, are you idiot or what? because the guys in the hospital was actually ours. It was our forces that are encircled in Kupiansk that now got destroyed by the Ukrainian aviation strike. So this once again underscores that Russia is trying to drive these propaganda narratives, but because the situation in Kupiansk is so incredibly bad for Russians, even Russian-owned propagandists are debunking their propaganda. It is truly hilarious, and I hope this will put a smile on your face. And if it did, please participate in a fundraiser for the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Black Raven. We are doing very well, and we're going to do even more with your help. Thank you so much. I love you. Trust in Ukraine, support the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you next time.